Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 11. The story starts out with Sabrina telling Salem that her letter was published in a Betty and Veronica issue, and the reply she got tells her to try to take an interest in one of Harvey's hobbies, which sounds like really obvious advice for any relationship. I'm guessing the conflict of the story is going to be that she'll hate all of his hobbies, or at least be really clumsy at them, and make me assume that the only reason the two are shipped together is out of tradition. They don't have anything meaningful in common. I guess the whole joke, or what passes for a joke, is going to be that because she's a girl, of course she won't like any of his hobbies. Or maybe even if she does like one, it'll annoy or embarrass Harvey and ruin his fun. It won't be so bad if we saw a girl enjoy one of his hobbies. A comic that has the female protagonist be a complete incompetent moron doesn't exactly earn the benefit of the doubt with this kind of thing. Predictable writing naturally leads to the audience trying to predict what's going to happen to see if it'll keep being lazy. Sabrina says that instead of competing with Harvey's hobbies, she'll try to join in with him. After Salem expects me to believe that Harvey wears pants that are 7 times too large, which would obviously just fall off him immediately and he wouldn't keep it up. Maybe he's just exaggerating, but not if he looks serious. He's supposed to be about football, not baggy pants. And then Salem laughs at Archie in the comic book he's reading. It's weird to see that the Archie series is a work of fiction in Sabrina's universe, considering that Sabrina originally started as a character in the Archie series itself. Harvey tells her that he's down to slot car Sam's racing store, and Sabrina embarrasses herself by lying that she loves it and it's one of her favorite things to do. I expected her to be honest with him right away. Why doesn't she just say that she's trying to take an interest in his hobbies to be a better friend? She's just setting herself up for failure because if she turns out to hate slot car racing, he'll realize he was lied to. I would have been impressed if Harvey knew she was telling a lie right away, but instead he says that he gave it up as lame and was just gonna sell his old stuff to Sam, which explained why he looked so glum. And he plans on giving it to her because she opened her big mouth. This could have been avoided if she just told him the truth. Instead he walks away to go meet the guys in his new card club at the park. Why doesn't she ask to go with him right away? Isn't it immediately obvious that a truly good relationship has honesty in it? And it's not like she can't trust him not to be overly sensitive. Sabrina complains that all she got from Betty and Veronica's advice was a bag of plastic toy car parts. Salem says that's because you took off without reading their entire response. Anybody who would get a response that isn't negative would read all of it. The advice says to not overdo it and just be yourself, because that's who you want him to like. It doesn't develop Harvey's character to show that he's not interested in a hobby anymore. Okay, I guess I like that the comic's response had Veronica and character take advantage of a richness character trait, because her advice is buy his house and make him your tenant. That will get his attention. That's pretty dumb. Sabrina meets with Harvey in the park, and they're playing and trading their magic cards. Why is the school bully here? Why is he keeping used as a character even when he's not threatening with violence? The whole point of his character. The antagonist of the story is that Sabrina won't like the hobbies. This is just mean. Harvey says that girls aren't usually into card games about warriors, spirits, dragons, and witches. The bully shouts at her to leave, so she runs away crying when the Sabrina I know would walk away irritated and then use magic to give him some comeuppance when he can't see her. Instead, a guy like Salem does it, which clearly isn't as satisfying as the actual victim doing the punishment. I shouldn't even have to explain this, it's so obvious! Logic would dictate that Harvey would stop hanging out with him after this. He had no reason to hang out with his bully. Salem makes him scream because a bee stung him, but I didn't get to see the bee actually sting him, so he didn't suffer nearly enough. I assumed Sabrina would get to play the game, or try to and get discouraged because it's extremely complicated. That'd be a natural way for the plot to progress. But that'd require the writer to research how a card game works, and that'd require effort. It may not be expected for a girl to play that game, but there's a reason I never expected Slugloaf to be here. Why would a bully like him be playing a nerd's game? I'd expect him to be beating this guy up. He wouldn't want to be seen with them. This was a twist, but twists are never okay at the expense of natural writing. Salem says that Sabrina ran all the way home. The Sabrina I know would just warp home. Has she even used magic in the story once? What's the point of the story being in the franchise then? Aside from that one spell with Salem, the story could have starred anybody. Salem shows Sabrina some old cards of his from the old academy, a deck of cards that Harvey's cards were based on. And then Hilda drags him away because the garage is filled with 50 pounds of kitty litter that he bought in bulk. Why would he buy anything? Why won't he just zap litter up? Especially with how much he uses magic. She says that these cards are really neat. Oh, it just has to backfire, doesn't it? Because for no reason at all, wherever the cards go, some evil spirits go with them. Why would Salem forget about this and show the cards to her? Did he seriously not anticipate that she was going to show them to Harvey? And her attempt to bond with Harvey predictably going wrong is supposed to be justified by something that would never happen, even to a witch. This story certainly sucks. What was so hard about just keeping it simple and showing her try to get involved in multiple hobbies and not liking most of them? She never even gets to try them. How do you do that? The bully tells Sabrina that Harvey went downtown to buy something with $5 he found in his pocket, and Sabrina satisfyingly impresses both of them with her cards. Because he's a bully, he predictably tries to steal them instead of just standing there or letting her play when he hates her. He could at least say he hates her because he knows what she's trying to do, and knows she doesn't really like the card game. At least the quiet-speaking guy calls him out on it, but why did he ever hang out with him if he hates the way he is? He says he's gonna get Harvey, and the monsters make the bully scream, which would have been much more satisfying if Sabrina summoned them on purpose. The Sabrina I know would have done that right away instead of a whole bunch of comic space and time being wasted on her going home and coming back. It doesn't make any sense that the monster would pick Sabrina up by the back of her shirt and ignore her when she tells him to put her down, because she was the one who summoned the monster in the first place. I just hate how many times Sabrina's made the damsel in distress in this comic. Either the comic's taking itself too seriously, or it's meant to be a joke, and it's a terrible joke. So the plot's dragged out as Salem tells Hilda what happened to Sabrina, and I'm just wondering why the cards that come with kidnapper knockoff demons were even made. This plot is dumb. Salem says that the monsters are easy to trick, instead of just warping Sabrina home. Thankfully, Sabrina's not scared because she's a witch, and she asks if her Aunt Hilda will do as the monsters get zapped away. Wait, so they didn't get tricked? That's also logical writing for once, but that isn't foreshadowed. If the monsters could just be zapped away like that, why didn't Sabrina do that right away? Oh, because padding. Is the writer literally forced to have a main story last this long and he can't just have a ton of short stories instead? Because that would be a lot better. Even a comic of nothing but comedy pages would be a lot less frustrating, I hope. Hilda plans on punishing Sabrina for taking Salem's cards without permission, even though Sabrina assumed it'd be okay with him. So she wasn't trying to do anything wrong. Salem wipes the bully's memory of all this. Too bad he won't do that to Hilda. Him being scared the whole time wasn't satisfying enough to make up for him being in the story. I don't think anything could. He hasn't apologized. He's slapped a few times by his friend to be snapped out of it. But they're both in monochrome and small and only see it happen once. Harvey ends the story by giving Sabrina an apology card that sings to her because he was ashamed of how he treated her earlier. He treated her? I wish he was written to say that he's apologizing for not just going with Sabrina, but even then, Sabrina wasn't going to do anything fun, and standing up to that bully would have been pointless. At least the story ends before we have to see Hilda punish Sabrina or nag her pointlessly. The demon cards tried to add magic to the story, but it was in such a tacked-on way that doesn't justify them eating up what the rest of the plot could have been. In the comedy page, Quigley wants to water some seedlings at dinner time. I don't know why Sabrina's wasting time getting excited over using magic around a mortal who hates magic. She has to conjure up a tiny rain cloud over them, and says that she's been working real hard on her witchcraft. He says that they're very delicate. Okay, to be fair, he's probably right. Magic tends to backfire in this comic. And this is the comedy page, so I bet her somehow screwing up will be the twist. You'd think she would immediately decide not to use magic the second he said that they're very delicate. Somehow, after she guilt him in a really obvious way that her crushed spirit will recover eventually, and I guess summons a tear with magic, he uncharacteristically decides to humor her and say that she wants her to do this. He can't even keep his strict parenting style consistent. She summons a tiny cloud to create a shower, and somehow it floods the entire greenhouse with just a few droplets. A very predictable joke when she obviously would have pointed and zapped the cloud away as soon as she felt like it seconds later. Even a mortal who just got powers would do better than this. In the next story, Sabrina tells Salem that she's going into the Hibernian Club to sell candy for the school fund drive. Salem refuses because he thinks it's way too Irish in there, his words. Imagine seeing that panel out of context. Even in context, it's bad. It does make sense because he's been alive for hundreds of years, so of course a witch would be dated and backwards like this. We're lucky the witch characters don't say this stuff a lot more. You'd think he'd have a problem with Chloe then, but I guess he holds his tongue for Sabrina's sake and warmed up to her eventually. He says that this would be the perfect place for a leprechaun to show up, so it's not totally dickish and unfounded. He's just scared of that. And the 90s comic showed that a leprechaun was more powerful than a witch, so they're a huge menace. I guess the leprechaun will be as stereotypical as possible, when this is already a series where the witches look like normal people. Somehow Sabrina never calls him out on sounding racist against Irish people, and immediately understands that he just hates leprechauns. And instead of heeding his warning right away and getting the fuck out of here, since he's always right when warning about magic, she stupidly giggles and tells him to just wait on the bench for her. She's so genre blind, she's alienating as protagonist. I'd rather Salem not be written to warn people and just give away the plot before it happens. He could be somewhere else at the time. He talks to himself out loud, unrealistically. He should have been written to think instead. He says he used to live in Ireland, and reminisces about the Irish goblins and ghosts and fairies, and for no reason, a banshee shows up with long red hair, and she chases them down as the two turn out to know each other. She catches them, and wants them to explain why he gave her a thunder stick and told her to wait in the dolmen because she was waiting for centuries. At least it's a twist that she's not a leprechaun. He says that was right when his quest for global domination began and quickly ended. And she says that being a cat suits him. And he asks what's so special about being a banshee, stupidly tempting fate when it could have easily frozen her in time forever with a single point by now. She screams and sends him away, because he somehow forgot that's what she could do, when screaming is what everyone knows banshees for. And he says that she has an Irish temper since he's centuries old, so he wouldn't care about being politically correct. Still, I could have easily done without that awkward line. She gives him the stick back, and reveals that he never cared about that and was gonna come back and ask her to go to the solstice dance with him. Why wouldn't he ask her right away? It'd make more sense if he was lying to get out of trouble. This makes her laugh at him, calling him String Bean Salem. And that hurts his ears, as I wonder how banshees don't hurt their own ears without being deaf. The story ends with Sabrina annoying Salem further because she was looking for him everywhere and raises her voice to him. At least that was a creative way of dealing with a banshee, but logically I'd expect him to just warp her away after freezing her in time. He tried to take over the world, he's not above that. In the next story, Sabrina reveals out of nowhere that her aunts cancelled MTV after the incident with Emerson. I never thought that'd be referenced again. This is the second instance of continuity. Anyways, it does make sense that they'd cancel it so that their easily manipulated moron wouldn't order another pet. It's not like they can prevent those commercials from showing up again. Maybe there's no option to order a commercials-free subscription by paying more. You can't imagine an absence of something, so they couldn't cast a spell to make the commercial not show up. And if witches could do that, they couldn't make any money off commercials and fund things with them. Anyways, Salem reveals that he made arrangements to keep MTV. Is this finally going to be an interdimensional cable episode where we see a whole bunch of witch TV shows? Giving us an insight into one world to develop it properly? This comic sucks, so I'm predicting that this won't happen. Instead, it'll be a wasted opportunity, and Salem will just look like an idiot for keeping MTV around because it'll only backfire on them. Salem's watching a show about greedy gazillionaires, which is the hottest show right now. Even morbid curiosity wouldn't motivate that kind of ratings because most people are sick of rich assholes. Why would he be excited about the show? I hope it involves bad things happening to the unlikable characters with tons of slapstick. It's a game show where the weird-looking host gets started by randomly selecting two unsuspecting viewers and teleporting them to the other realm to play their game. They would get sued. They wouldn't be allowed to do this. How can he imagine a viewer he's never seen before to teleport him to him? I thought the contestants would only be greedy rich people, and predictably, Sabrina gets forced into the game because main character syndrome, when it'd be far more likely that she wouldn't be chosen. At least Salem wasn't chosen too, which I was expecting at this point. And Salem runs to the ants for help instead of warping her back home with a point of the finger because bullshit. I assume there's a spell to prevent the summoned contestants from just warping back home. But that'd be illegal too, wouldn't it? and she says that she's new at this. Unrealistically, he just says that she'll pick it up as they go along, which is totally unfair to every new contestant. Is this a parody of game shows that are bad? Because come on, no game show would do blatantly illegal things. They want to make it to air. A good parody is based on reality, exposing the actual flaws. This is just mean. The alien buzzes early, and she spits on Sabrina instead of spitting literally anywhere else. She didn't need to demonstrate, she would have just said the answer. If I were her, I'd warp the alien away and dry myself off with magic. But this idiot just wipes himself on the shirt that's probably his skin since he blushes and it's squishy. We see Hilda thankfully rooting for Sabrina back home. I guess it's official, they can't warp her home. Or they're smart enough to keep her there because what if she wins? But that changed the status quo. Except it shouldn't, because apparently they already live in a mansion, so they're already rich. If she's gonna lose, I hope it's in a logical way, because the story's annoying the hell out of me. I guess he uses an RNG generator to decide which viewer to zap up illegally. The choices would be slightly narrowed down to only the viewers who say they're okay with entering the game show. No one will be zapped in without their permission, that's called kidnapping. Zelda says that she waited until the commercial and asks Salem why they still have NTV. He thankfully explains that he saw an infomercial and logged onto their website. They both decide to recklessly stop supervising Sabrina and go with Salem. Oh good, even though Hilda said she'd tape it, she stays with the show as it comes back on. The game show host throws lightning at the contestants, and Sabrina's the only one to dodge, when you'd think she'd be hit too. Or if she had time to react, because he only threw the lightning after he finished talking, and clearly telegraphing what he was going to do, then logically all of them would have dodged. And obviously it'd be illegal to throw lightning at your contestants. And because bullshit, the loser gets the prize. So the green girl gets the prize, because I guess she got hurt the worst. You'd think she'd be dead. I get that the loser would get the prize as a consolation prize for being hit with lightning, but he has no reason to assume anyone wouldn't sue him, or that the family wouldn't sue him if they died from it. Sabrina doesn't feel sorry for the alien, but that makes sense after she was spit on. She's told that her prize is a huge amount of centuries of hard labor in sulfur mines. First of all, that'd be illegal too. It's not like it's the first time this game show ever aired. People have experience with it. It'd be shut down immediately. If this is a government ploy to get laborers in sulfur mines, why wouldn't they make everyone in the contest do it? And why wouldn't witches just use magic to get the sulfur out instead of needing hard labor in mines? Which would take longer. There's like a problem every sentence. Sabrina gets warped back home just in time, as I seriously wonder why the person who avoided lightning would be punished for it. Somehow Sabrina's in a cheerful mood after all of this. This issue is by Mike Gallagher. The first story was trash that wasted most of its potential. I assumed Sabrina would at least get to the point of trying Harvey's hobbies, and there'd be multiple hobbies. It was obvious that she'd hate them because she didn't like his comic. The cards of Salem summoning demons that kidnap people for no reason at all was such a tacked-on contrivance. It's just there because, oh right, there's supposed to be magic in this comic. You'd think she would have just instantly zapped the demons away. It's forced that a stereotypical bully yelled at Sabrina because he wouldn't even play Magic at the Gathering with Harvey in the first place. The second story made me think it'd be about a leprechaun, but instead there was a twist where Salem had to deal with a banshee instead, who finally caught up with him after getting tired of waiting for him to come back to her. I love her design, and it was creative that he calmed her down by making her laugh at him for wanting to dance with her. Since they weren't used to being enemies, and he wanted to ask her out last time he knew her, and I guess was just too shy to right away, it makes sense that he wouldn't just freeze her and warp away because that'd be too mean. But he didn't recognize her right away, so he would have just frozen her at first. Maybe banshees are immune to witchcraft, but it could still magic up an object and send it flying at her face. The final story is about Sabrina getting sucked into a torturous game show that's completely bonkers and illegal because Salem ordered NTV again after last time. Everything is wrong with this story. Everything about this was forced and not worth going into again. This whole story was just mean.